were speaking to this lady that is in these photos about how they heard about the dolphin on the news, the BBC, and it had saved the pygmy whales. And they had a conversation and just said, you know, if we ever come to New Zealand, we're going to go to Mahia. It might still be there, and we'll see. And they came from Auckland to, you know, other parts of the country and finally got here to Mahia, stopped down by the boat landing to have a picnic, and there was the dolphin. Couldn't believe it. 5 hours later, they're still in the water playing with the dolphin. I rescued all their camera gear. They had a little bag with batteries and bits and pieces in, and they're out there playing, and the tide's coming in, and so I moved everything up and just sort of waved out and said, it's up here on the beach. They were still playing with the dolphin, and they couldn't believe that there's something that they had heard of 2 or 3 years previously, and they just made a random comment that if we get to Mahia, we're going to go to Mahia to see the dolphin. It might not be there, but we'll go. Arrive and there's the dolphin. It's a just wonderful story. Had moved from us to Gisborne and then on to Wakatani, and this lady had said she'd always wanted to swim with a dolphin. That was her one thing on her bucket list that she really wanted to do. So they stayed the night, and the next morning she was so excited, and she had all the information. She said, we're going to Wakatani, we've got the map, got it all mapped out. And I got an email from her about 3 weeks later to say that she'd actually swum with the dolphin, and she said it was the best thing that could ever happen. And I imagine that her, like most of the New Zealanders that had ever swam with him, was so devastated when he actually died. That was horrible, you know. Nobody could believe that he would actually die. He was going to live forever, you know. Marvellous thing. Sad. Eric had a very unique experience with Moko. He was able to actually stroke, hold, touch his tail, which is something I don't think dolphins let humans do very often. And he spontaneously even kissed his tail, which I thought was a bit mad, but still. And I was able to capture that on photos. And he and his wife got to the stage where both of them were touching the dolphin at the same time, and Moko just rolled over on his belly for them so they could rub his belly and his tail and whatever. And then he righted himself and swam away, and now he was in water that would only be knee deep. And I've got lots of photos on my computer of all these things that these people did. They got on the phone and said to some friends, you know, we've just spent 3 or 4 hours with the dolphin. Their friends tore over from another part of the country, and for the next 3 days Moko didn't show up. Their friends were very upset and jealous that they'd got to spend all this time with the dolphin and they didn't even get to see him. And that's what Moko would do. He would come in and spend a whole day playing with lots of different people, and then he might disappear out to sea. I don't know whether he was going to meet up with another pod or just going out to feed, and then you may not see him for 2 or 3 days. A friend of mine lent us some kayaks that we could hire out, and we forgot to add a bungee cord to attach the paddle to the kayak. So some people hired one and went out on the water with Moko, and he managed to knock the paddle out of their hand. So the people stayed in the water for I don't know how long trying to retrieve the paddle, but when you haven't got your own paddle to catch up to the dolphin to try and get a paddle off him, it was an impossibility. So they brought the kayak back and apologised profusely, and I thought, you know, this is a bit lousy, I've now got a kayak and no paddle. And a gentleman actually came to me and said, how much business have you actually had because of the dolphin? And I said, oh, people keep coming, they ring up, they ask us on the telephone, have you got somewhere for us to stay? And the second question out of their mouth is the dolphin still there? And of course if you say yes, they turn up and stay. And I thought about it and I thought, yes, you did right. I've had lots and lots and lots and lots of business from the dolphin. I can afford to go and buy a new paddle and replace the one that went missing. So I did. And I always wrote on the balls that I lent people that were staying in the camping ground, especially the overseas visitors. I had soccer balls with red and white ones, nice for taking photos, nice for being able to see at sea. And I wrote on them Moko's balls, and then Motor Camp, Mahia Beach Motels and Motor Camp on them, so that if he managed to steal them, which he did on numerous occasions, somebody, if they found them, would bring them back. And one day I was sitting in my office and a grandmother and granddaughter came in, and this child was not very impressed that she had to give back a ball that actually had Moko's ball written on it and my Motor Camp name. And they had found it around the end of Mokatahi Hill, which is where who Moko was named after, that hill. But that was the only ball that came back, and I think we lost about 3 balls. In fact, I've still got a ball here at the camp that's got Moko's name on it. The first time Moko spotted the kayak, he nudged his nose up against the back of it and started pushing the kayak across the bay with the kayaker inside, who just held his paddle up and didn't have to put it in the water, and he was really motoring. And he would bring the dolphin in where the children were, and they would just love it. He would just swim through the middle of them and let them all put their hand out and touch him as he went past. And then he would do a bit of a circle round and then come back towards the kids, and the expressions on their faces were just delightful. In fact, when I took my pictures, I should have been putting my camera on the children's faces, not on the dolphin fin in the water. And after they'd touched the dolphin, the kids would explode with excitement, and they would hold hands and give each other the high five. Not something that they would actually ever probably do again. But the sad thing was that one team may come one day, group of kids, and they would get to see the dolphin. They would go back to school and tell their friends all about it, but the next group of kids that came down, for 2 days, he may not show up, so they're all disappointed that they missed him. And a camp is only 2 days long, so if he doesn't show up in those 2 days, you've missed out. A lot of people sort of 60s, 70s, who are not frequent swimmers in the sea and don't bring their swim togs with them, would hear that the dolphin was in the water and would wade in as far as they could without getting all their clothes wet. Some would get their clothes wet, but they wouldn't go any deeper than probably mid-thigh. But if the dolphin was out there and whomever was with him would just leave him alone for a wee while, he'd come in just close enough to these people so that they could at least put their hands out and touch him once, and then he'd swim past them and sort of, hello, thanks, nice, come to see me, I'll see you later, and then he'd go back out into the deeper water. And we found sometimes that he loved the simple things of life. Just a little bit of seaweed was just something that he would play with people. Other times he would retrieve a piece of wood that floated, and he'd use it almost like a dog trick, you know, bring the piece of wood, the people would throw it out to sea, and he'd whip out and get it and bring it back again and play with that. A ball, he loved a ball. It wasn't until he left us and went to Wakatani that they started introducing some really different toys for him. And apparently in Wakatani he used to love a polystyrene type toy called a noodle. And I don't know how many times I read about that on the blog, that he'd stolen people's noodles. And they were like a big piece of polystyrene about so long with a hole in the centre, and you could wrap it round your waist and float with it. And apparently he loved those. He took them on a great deal of time, you know, took them away a lot. Another thing that he found for himself in the Wakatani River was the road cones. Over the years, people had thrown the orange road cones into the river, and I think the first time he turned up in the Wakatani River, people could see this orange pointy witch's hat type road cone zooming around on the surface of the water, and couldn't figure out what was going on until he tossed it off his nose and up came Moko behind it. And I think he'd probably do a good job with the Ministry of Works retrieving all the road cones that humans had thrown in the river over the years, but I honestly don't know if they took him up for and gave him a job. But they would have definitely got a lot of them back. I don't think Moko's going to be forgotten in a long time, because I've still got postcards. People come to Mahia and still say, oh, this is where the dolphin was, wasn't it? We're sitting around having a chat and somebody will remember something funny that happened about Moko and they'll relate it. So it's going to be in the oral history around Mahia for a long, long time. Whenever anybody catches a big fish here, they always say, oh, nowhere near as big as the one that Moko brought in for so-and-so. You know, you've got to get a big snapper to beat the one that he had. Even up in Gisborne, I'm sure that the people up there won't forget the day that he stole a really expensive paddle and the fun that the children had. But then, whenever there's been a write-up in the newspaper about him in the past, I'm sure that a lot of people cut those write-ups out and put them in a scrapbook. And if I have had a personal encounter with him, then I'm going to relate that to my family. And then my family in the future, if another dolphin ever comes to New Zealand and gets friendly like Moko does, he's always going to be there. This dolphin's just like Moko, you know. Somebody else I know swam with the dolphin. People are going to remember for the rest of their lives. Anyone that touched him or anyone that had something to do with him are not going to forget him in a hurry.